It begins with thunder, not from a storm, but from two jet engines screaming at full afterburner. The sound rolls across the jungles of Vietnam, echoing off mountains and rivers. Villagers look up too late. A streak of gray and smoke flashes overhead, followed by the deafening roar of destruction. That was the sound of the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom I, the most feared fighter jet of the Vietnam War. It was fast, loud, ugly, and unstoppable. The Phantom was not just a fighter, it was an era, a machine that dominated air combat for decades and defined the very look of American air power. But the story of the F-4 Phantom is not just about speed or firepower. It's about innovation, evolution, and redemption, from its troubled beginnings to its triumph as one of the most successful warplanes in history. This is the untold story of the jet that terrified its enemies and rewrote the rules of aerial warfare. Number 1. The birth of a monster. The Phantom story begins in 1953. In the tense years of the Cold War, the US Navy needed a new fighter, something fast enough to chase Soviet bombers and versatile enough to defend aircraft carriers. McDonnell Aircraft, a company already known for its experimental jets, began working on a radical new design, a two-seat, twin-engine supersonic interceptor that could carry heavy loads of missiles instead of guns. When it first appeared on the drawing board, many thought it looked wrong, too bulky, too heavy, too unconventional. Its wings had a strange anhedral tilt, its tailplane slanted down instead of up. Even its nose seemed oversized. But those who saw past its looks recognized genius. Powered by two General Electric J792 turbojets, the F-4 could reach Mach 2.2, more than twice the speed of sound. It could climb like a rocket, fly higher than 60,000 feet, and carry up to 18,000 pounds of weapons, bombs, missiles, rockets, or anything the mission demanded. When the Navy tested it in 1958, pilots were stunned. It could outclimb any jet they had ever flown. It could take off from a carrier deck with a full payload and still accelerate into the stratosphere. By 1960, the Phantom had shattered 16 world speed, altitude, and time to climb records. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a phenomenon. The US Air Force, which initially ignored it as a Navy toy, quickly changed its mind. The Phantom was too powerful to ignore. By 1965, both the Navy and the Air Force were flying the same jet parenting, something that had never happened before. And soon, that jet would face its ultimate test, Vietnam. Number 2. Baptism by fire. When the Vietnam War escalated in the mid-1960s, the F-4 Phantom was America's frontline fighter. Its mission: destroy enemy fighters, bomb supply lines, and protect strike aircraft deep over North Vietnam. At first, the Phantom seemed unstoppable. It had radar-guided missiles, heat-seeking sidewinders, and enough thrust to outrun anything the North Vietnamese had. But there was one problem that would nearly ruin its reputation. It had no gun. US doctrine at the time believed dogfighting was a thing of the past. Missiles, not bullets, were the future. But in the skies over Vietnam, reality hit hard. The enemy flew MiG-17s and MiG-25s, small, agile, deadly fighters that could outturn the heavy F-4. When missile locks failed, and they often did, Phantom crews found themselves helpless in close combat. Pilots soon gave the F-4 a new nickname, the Flying Brick. It could fly fast, but not turn tight. It could climb high, but not escape a well-timed MiG ambush. The early kill ratio, once expected to be 10-1, dropped to barely 2-1. The Pentagon was shocked. America's most advanced fighter was struggling against cheaper, simpler Soviet jets. Number 3. Adapt and overcome. But the Phantom story didn't end there. What made it truly feared wasn't just its power, it was its ability to evolve. By 1967, the F-4's weaknesses had become lessons. New tactics were born. American pilots were retrained in close-quarters combat. The US Navy's Top Gun School was founded in 1969 specifically to teach Phantom pilots how to fight smarter. They studied MiG tactics, practiced mock dogfights, and rediscovered the lost art of aerial maneuvering. The Air Force followed with its own version, the Red Flag program, and the Phantom itself changed. The later FECE model was equipped with a built-in MISX-1 Vulcan 20-meter cannon, giving it the bite it had always lacked. It also received better radar, improved missiles, and more powerful engines. Now, when the Phantoms returned to battle, they came back with vengeance. By the end of the war, American pilots had reversed the kill ratio, destroying enemy MiGs 5-1. The Phantom had become what it was always meant to be, a ruthless, flexible, unstoppable machine. Number 4. The sound of fear. Ask any soldier or civilian who lived through the Vietnam War what sound they remember most, and many will say the Phantom. Its engines didn't just roar, they screamed. The G-79s left trails of black smoke that streaked across the sky, marking where death had come from. North Vietnamese ground troops called it the Whispering Death because often, by the time you heard it, it was already too late. The Phantom could dive from 30,000 feet at supersonic speed, drop bombs with surgical precision, then pull away before enemy fire could reach it. It wasn't graceful, but it didn't need to be. It was fear. Fear in metal form, delivered with the speed of sound. Number 5. The Phantom's many faces. What made the F-4 truly unique was its versatility. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a bomber, a recon jet, a wild weasel, and even a nuclear strike platform. The Navy's F-4B and F-4J models ruled the carrier decks. The Air Force's F-4C, D, and E models flew deep into enemy territory, and the Marine Corps used Phantoms for close air support. The same airframe could do it all. He could escort B-52s one day, attack ground targets the next, and then intercept MiGs at night. Few aircraft in history have worn so many roles and done them all so well. Number 6. The pilots who made it legendary. The Phantom was powerful, but it took extraordinary men to master it. Among them was Colonel Robin Olds, a triple ace who became a legend flying the F-4 in Vietnam. Olds led Operation Bolo, one of the most ingenious air traps in history. He disguised Phantoms as unarmed bombers, luring North Vietnamese MiG-21s into battle. When the MiGs attacked, the Phantoms turned and unleashed hell. In just 12 minutes, they shot down 7 enemy jets without losing a single Phantom. That operation changed the war and restored the Phantom's reputation overnight. Olds once said, "The Phantom was a brute, but in the hands of a good crew, it was the most beautiful brute you could ever fly." Number 7. From Vietnam to the world. After Vietnam, the F-4 Phantom became a global icon. It served in the Air Forces of Japan, Germany, Israel, Iran, the UK, South Korea, Greece, Turkey, and more than a dozen other nations. In Israeli hands, it became a legend again during the Yom Kippur War. Phantoms dominated Arab airspace, taking down MiGs and striking ground targets with pinpoint accuracy. In Iran, the Phantom became the backbone of the Imperial Air Force, and even after the 1979 revolution, Iranian pilots continued flying it through 8 brutal years of war against Iraq. The F-4 proved itself time and again through mud, heat, and fire. It wasn't just America's fighter, it was the world's fighter. Number 8. Phantom VS, the future. By the late 1970s, new fighters like the F-15 Eagle, F-16 Fighting Falcon, and F-A-18 Hornet began replacing the Phantom. They were lighter, more maneuverable, equipped with advanced radar and fly-by-wire controls, but none had the raw personality of the F-4. It had already flown over 5 million flight hours, dropped millions of pounds of ordnance, and served in every major U.S. conflict since the early Cold War. Even after retirement, it continued serving as a drone, a test bed, and a training aircraft for the next generation of pilots. The last U.S. Phantoms were retired in 1996 after nearly 4 decades of service. And yet even today, some Air Forces still fly upgraded versions. That's how good the design was. Number 9. The spirit of the Phantom. What made the F-4 Phantom legendary was never just its raw power or its screaming twin engines. It was the feeling it carried, the invisible weight of history in motion. When it tore through the clouds, it didn't merely fly. It announced itself. A thunderclap made of metal and will. Pilots called it a brute, a beast, a miracle. Enemies called it a ghost. The Phantom didn't glide, it lunged, defying both aerodynamics and expectation, proving that mastery was often born from madness. In the Vietnam skies, it became both hunter and hunted. Its gray fuselage streaked with soot and glory. Crews formed a strange bond with it, half love, half fear. The cockpit smelled of sweat and oil, but to those who flew it, it smelled like life itself. When newer jets arrived, sleeker, quieter, more efficient, the Phantom refused to fade. It lingered in training squadrons, in foreign air forces, in memory. Even now, when one roars at an air show, people still look up instinctively. It is no longer a weapon, but an echo of courage, chaos, and the stubborn beauty of imperfection. The F-4 Phantom was never just an aircraft. It was a heartbeat carved in titanium, still pulsing in the collective memory of flight. Closing reflection, when the last Phantom took off from American soil, its engines roared one final time, the sound fading into the distance like thunder over a battlefield now long silent. It was more than just an airplane. It was a weapon, a workhorse, a legend. The Phantom fought the longest air war of the 20th century and came out victorious. It adapted, survived, and inspired. Even today, when a gray silhouette streaks across the sky at an air show, the crowd feels the ground tremble, and somewhere deep inside, that old fear returns, because this was no ordinary jet. This was the F-4 Phantom II, the beast that ruled the skies of Vietnam and became the most feared fighter jet of its time.